Welcome back to the Unfinished Podcast, where we embrace the messy, beautiful reality of learning, growing, and becoming human. I'm your host, Sam Elsner, and this is episode 4, a number that holds special significance today because, coincidentally enough, it's also the favorite number of our incredible guest. Speaking of our guest, I have to share something that literally pretty much brought tears to my eyes. A few days ago, while scrolling through Instagram during one of those challenging periods that we all face, I came across a reel that stopped me in my tracks. It's from someone who saw exactly what I was trying to do with this whole podcast thing, me writing for my Hammer and Anvil newsletter, with this whole unfinished journey that I'm on. That moment of being truly seen is what our conversation today is all about. Today, I'm joined by, Scooter's Cold Brew, but also our guest, Christen Schweizer, author, corporate leadership coach, and someone who spent decades exploring what she calls the Centaur path. Now, before you think we're diving into mythology, let me tell you, this is about something far more profound and practical. Christen has discovered something revolutionary about how we learn, connect, and perform as human beings. Her story is remarkable, from being orphaned by 16 years old, raising her younger siblings, to overcoming alcoholism, to becoming a director of analytics while developing a groundbreaking approach that bridges neuroscience, horsemanship, parenting, and leadership. She's taken her understanding of ecological psychology, nonlinear pedagogy, and what she calls our mammalian intelligence to create a model that's changing how people think about skill development and human connection. In today's conversation, we explore why emotions aren't obstacles to overcome, but intelligent signals to embrace, how constraints actually create freedom, and why the slow way is the fast way when it comes to real learning and growth. We dive deep into parenting without trying to make little robots, leadership that taps into our social architecture as mammals, and why Christen believes we need more centaurs in the world. This episode gets beautifully messy as we explore my own journey through this time where I'm unemployed, the challenge of writing an imperfect book, and why failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the raw material of it. We talk about everything from toddler tantrums to corporate management, from guitar playing to horsemanship, all through the lens of this powerful idea that our mind, heart, and body need to work together as one integrated system. Fair warning though, this conversation is unstructured, unfinished, and absolutely essential. We're going to challenge some deeply held beliefs about how learning happens, what emotional regulation actually means, and why the path to mastery looks nothing like what we've been taught. So settle in, grab a coffee for a conversation that will change how you think about skill development, human connection, and what it truly means to live as an integrated human being. This is episode 4 of the Unfinished Podcast, and I couldn't be more excited to share this transformative dialogue with you. So let's dive in. All right, Christen, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. I know, like, just a little bit before we started, I'm outside. So just changing up the scenery, having a little fun here. But um, to really get things started here, I know I was browsing your website a little bit before this, actually for quite a bit this morning. And my attention was really drawn to this line, and it says, I could be wrong. I'm probably forgetting it, but we need more centaurs in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know we just recently connected on Instagram. I think you followed me and then just messaged me, and then we started chit chatting a little bit and all that stuff. And I looked into more of what you do and everything, and I love it. So, can you really just dive deep into that saying or just this centaur path?
Yes. Well, I literally wrote a book about it because I can go on and on about this. So, the
Absolutely.
overlap and why I'm so interested in what you do and more about, I love your podcast, signed up for your newsletter, can't wait for more. And the little bit that I know, because I'm not an expert in or self-determination theory or constraints-led approach, but we agree that you can't just shove information through cognition through the mind and have it reach the body. The body has its own localized perception and reactions and intelligence. And so, as a centaur, this works metaphorically, but I believe it works literally on a fractal level. For a rider to be the cognition for the horse, because the horse is superior in its body and it has its own body, we can't just dominate them in the long term. We can use pain, we can give them information and signals and signs, but ultimately what we need to do is bond through the heart. And by that I mean the limbic system. And we're mammals. And horses are as limbic of a creature as you can get. So when I say we need to be centaurs, I think we need to use the intelligence not only of our cognition, our rational mind, our neocortex, not only of the localized body, the immense problem solving that we can do without having the conscious cognition, but the emotions, the limbic system, the heart, which ties into things like autonomy and decision making. Like we like to think that we're all Spocks and we make rational decisions, but every decision's emotional, and then our rational mind finds reasons. Like if you look at the science, like
Hmm.
people say, "Oh, I emotionally eat." Actually, you emotionally eat everything. And so I think when I say I want more people to become centaurs and realize that there is a huge, just like CLA, like there's a magic in manipulating the environment and calibrating it to find the best outcome. There is a magic when we use the power not only of emotions, but the power of social connection. And we are made for that as mammals. And why
Hmm.
horses are such a good example. But you can be a centaur with a parent helping a child through their bond, a teacher helping a student through their bond, a manager in the corporate world, like I do Adlerian coaching in corporate settings. The manager helps the team member through their bond. And my big message is that it doesn't have to be ooey gooey. It does not have to be codependent. You don't have to be a therapist. There are billions of people that teach their children to talk without having any official, training in it. We naturally know how to connect and encourage each other. And I think we need to do that as much as possible on a horse, in a relationship, and then understanding our own alignment with our mind, our heart, and our horse or body. So that's what it
You know,
means to be a centaur.
I love it. I love it. You basically said what's actually going to be in my upcoming book, The Play Advantage, pretty spot on because I'm talking about play as a universal way to really learn, grow, and develop skill. And it's a lost art in today's world, play. Like it's taken out of everything. And this can be applied to, I believe, any living organism out there. And you said it pretty perfectly where you're talking about, bosses in the corporate world, parents, teachers, coaches, whomever. And actually, funny enough, you mentioned that, parents are teaching their kids how to speak. I have my daughter turns 15 months on Monday,
Hmm.
and I'm not, I'm gonna brag her up quite a bit, but I'm not trying to compare her because that's just something I don't believe in as a parent. Try to like social standards, but she's like ahead of the curve from developmental
Hmm.
because I think she started walking at 11 months or right at 12 months, and we never taught her how to walk. We literally, and now she's babbling and saying more words a little bit more clearly, and we're just talking with her. We're not telling her, oh, like, say your T's like t or like
Yeah.
or anything like that. It's just like letting her figure it out and really opening my eyes to like this play paradox or this play thing because she makes mistakes, she messes around, she figures things out and
Hmm.
like all of it. And she's awesome. She's doing great, and she's her own little human, and she's doing her own thing. And I think what makes me sad is in the next 5 or so years, she's going to go to, regular school and going to get through this whole system that has been developed since, at least brought to America in the mid 1800s. I think 1852 is like when the Prussian educational
Yeah.
system was brought.
Makes factory
And
workers, you know? Yeah.
yep, makes good factory workers obedient people. And she's going through this, but so I'm trying to set her up for that and be able to just make, like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do, like, play and be unfinished. Little ode to, the podcast, and just be messy and all that. And kind of going on a ramble there, but no, I love that. You hit that right on the nail there
It
on that.
well, it's
And
so true. I mean, play we learn. That's how mammals learn through play.
mm-hmm.
And humans, our adolescence and our ability to be playful goes far into adulthood than other animals, and that's I don't know chicken or egg why that's why we're more cognitively intelligent to a certain degree. Now, you should totally read Playful Parenting by Leonard Cohen. And
Okay.
oh, it's Cohen. It's not might be Leonard. That's the musician. I'll send you a link. It's one of the
Yeah.
best books, and he has a book on roughhousing and how important roughhousing with children is
Mm-hmm.
as well. So
Yep. You
love
know,
those books. Love those
yeah,
books.
exactly. Especially funny thing that you mentioned roughhousing, because I actually, my like we have a close friend, my wife and I. We have it's actually her childhood like best friend, and they're having their second child coming in. I believe it's sometime in this fall, and they already have a almost 2-year-old son. And I asked him, the father, I was like, "How's it feel to be a girl dad coming up?" And he's like, it's going to be kind of weird because I'm so rough with my son, but I'm not going to be rough with her. Well, I'm the opposite. My
Oh yeah.
daughter loves being thrown around and all that stuff. And I'm like, there's so much, one, to the vestibular system and
Oh
all
yeah.
of that. And then just visual cognitive aspect. And
Well, yeah.
I'm,
And
yeah.
roughhousing,
So,
they need to know where their limits are, like that,
mm-hmm,
like to say no, but they
mm-hmm.
also, you need to push past those. I mean, roughhousing
Yeah.
is so good in so many ways. Yeah, for
Oh,
boys
yeah,
and girls,
absolutely.
everybody. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. Um, you mentioned, um, about just like the heart to heart connection where you're
Hmm.
riding a horse and everything, and honestly that brings me back to my one and only experience riding a horse. I My wife knows the timetable, but I want to say it's 5 or 6 years ago, and I rode a horse because her cousin races horses and teaches horses and all that stuff. So we went up to northern Minnesota. I want to say it was in Christmas time. I could be completely wrong, I don't know. And I was actually very nervous to ride a horse because I was like, it's this majestic beast, and
It
looking at it,
is.
and
Yeah.
I'm big into, like, the fantasy world, the mythological world, all of that. That's why I connected with the Centaur, because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's awesome. I play enough video games and all that stuff that I've come across it. And I was when I was thinking of that time, I was just like, I'm so nervous. And her cousin was like, okay, I'll let you ride with our more, like, the more tame and calm horse. And I was like, okay. And when I was riding, it was just a simple walk around the property. She taught me how to, like, I don't know the technical terms, but like, it's not stirrup, but it's the
The
rope,
reins, what you hold.
the
Yeah. Hmm.
the reins. Yep. So she was like, yep, pull left, give a tug left or right to go left and right, and then pull back to stop. And I was like, okay, or slow down. And that's all I did. I let her do all the work
Hmm.
because I was nervous, but I felt that connection of just like letting her do her own thing. And I was like, I gave a little tug here and she would follow, or I give a little tug here. It's not like a full pull, but it's just
Hmm.
like, I'm 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 the inferior being in this
In this,
scenario, and
yes.
in this scenario, so I'm just like, I'm not gonna push it. And I think I was tugging to the right, and she actually went nope, and went over to this little patch of grass on the property and started chewing while I'm on top of her, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna let you do your thing. I'm just here. Um, so tell me, so thinking about that experience and having that heart to heart connection with you in this 1,000 pound majestic animal,
Hmm.
How can we as humans in today's world build that connection with everything?
With everything. Yes, and that's what living as a centaur is. Well, for a lot of us, especially I think in the West, I love the Western world. I don't say this disparagingly, but we're taught that rationality is like the highest hierarchy you can get. Like the triune brain model that I'm kind of getting at here is just a map of the territory. Like there's not,
Uh-huh.
reptiles have emotions, right? But we, we emotions can be so scary, and especially emotions within other people, like the conflict social behavior can be so overwhelming to people that it's just easier to just turn it off and say this gets in the way of the goals. And there are times and places for that, but if we actually listen to the very rich qualitative data that emotions give us, then we can use that to connect the heart, to connect the mind and the body. Because the whole neuroscience behind this is that if you're in fight and flight, if your limbic system is in fight and flight, sympathetically aroused, your neocortex literally cannot shuts off. You cannot cognitively think. We get very reactive. We do things we regret. We understand the long run. I mean, I'll use something controversial because I don't have any judgment against this, but like people who get angry and spank their children, that parent is often dysregulated. They're in fight and flight. They watch their parent do this. It was done to them. They know they're going to be fine, and they act out and they spank. They get short term compliance from a child. That punishment is effective. The kids will stop doing whatever. But in the long run, they understand that causing pain to another that they love isn't going to help the relationship, right? Similarly, if you are a corporate manager, and this doesn't happen as often, but I've heard of it happening, like if you yell and ream somebody out, you're in a sympathetic nervous system rage. You can't access your cognition. You can't be calm. And in leadership, some of the best leaders were military commanders. And you wouldn't think of them as empathetic, but they did. They knew what their subordinates and their charges, their soldiers were feeling and thinking, and they could be empathetic and calm. We love calm people because their nervous system's calm, they're living in their emotions, and then they can tap into that cognition to give better orders or to help lead. So for somebody to live as a centaur is to be empathetic and understanding that emotions are not overwhelming. They have a lot of knowledge to give, and that often, especially now that you have a young child, they live in their emotions. They're very limbic. We can tell a kid like use your words, do this or that, but you will actually get farther if we can tell them you are feeling embarrassed, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling worried. If we can as a parent model and label that emotion, that will calm the nervous system and then allow them to think. But just shutting off the emotions, that's like the opposite of being a centaur. You want to be aligned. So these are more parenting examples because kids
Uh-huh.
aren't are just very honest in their emotions. So the more as a parent that we can label the emotion, see it, they stop fighting us to be seen, and then we can access the power of the mind. And we don't get compliance then. What happens often, like in Adlerian, and I say Adler, so Alfred Adler was a psychologist. He was a contemporary of Freud. He had a vastly different way of looking at humans than Freud. And so the implications of behavior are different. So with Adler, he believed we all wanted to be in social cooperation. So when we as a parent can tap into, or a leader, or on a horse, if we can tap into those emotions and be empathetic, we can open up the mind. And what happens is that children, especially, so in our family, we do family meetings, we bring up a problem, we talk about what we want. My kids come up with the most creative solutions to family problems. So it's not a top down central command hierarchy like we're the parents, we know the best to do. The kids, and it's like a CLA. They come up with a almost spontaneous equilibrium that helps the whole family. Everybody gets their needs met. We get, for example, screen time and chores. That comes up over and over in a family. But the kids will often come up with ideas that that can are a better equilibrium than what the parents come up with. And same thing at work. Like I'm a corporate manager. My team, the frontline people can come up with far more intelligent things than if I just say top down, this is how we're going to do it. And you already know this as a coach in CLA. Like you don't need to tell people what to do. You give them the space and they come up, and our bodies do too. So all of this is living as a centaur. And I think that emotional heart piece and calming down the nervous system and being empathetic and being securely attached allows that cognition to help form the constraints for the body to come up with the solution.
That's powerful. That's huge. I love all of that. Um, I think one part that you really one of the dots that really stuck out to me was, being in one's emotions, especially when you have a toddler, as I'm going through right now, and she's in this phase where she throws a temper tantrum because she got what she wanted. Like she asked for like a yogurt pouch or like a toy, and we're like, "Oh, okay, we'll give this to you." And she throws a fit. One thing that I've been trying to do is just don't don't say anything. Let her just bask in that, because that's her feeling her emotions or
Hmm.
her feeling that. Instead, how I was raised, and probably a lot of other people were raised, is just like throw a temper tantrum. Like, no, don't do that. Like, told, don't throw a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
Can't act that way. You have to
Yeah.
act structured and stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, I'm gonna let her feel that. And so that, like, this whole broad spectrum, and I like saying broad spectrum because it encompasses a lot of everything, where it's like ecological dynamics, ecological psychology, constraints of approach, complexity science, all of it. I started learning this in the sports performance world. Out of the I'm out of the game now, and actually right now I'm unemployed for coming up on 3 months. So I'm kind of taking this personally and like looking at a worldview spectrum or perspective. Um, all of these can be applied to anything in life.
Hmm.
And and a lot of the science or a lot of the studies that I was reading was so focused on this silo of sports performance or skill development and all that stuff. And I think we got to start venturing into that, where it's parenting, emotional regulation, corporate management, teaching, all of that. And that's huge. And I love that you said that you're allowing the people under you, allowing, and even your kids to come up with these constraints or these solutions to said problems, because that's kind of evening the playing field and getting rid of this hierarchy of I'm the boss, I'm in authority, you have to listen to me. When in reality, with having that social learning architecture where we can work together and build off of one another, that's how us humans, like you mentioned, are built, are wired.
That is our
It,
wiring. Yes, let's take advantage of it. We're
exactly.
really good at it. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's been studies, or I could be completely wrong, but if we isolate ourselves from any social architecture or any social phenomenon, we die.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Yeah. Social
it
isolation is torture. Yeah.
exactly. So, and those people, if they're in prisons and they're in isolation, solitary confinement, they go crazy because it's just them in a dark room and not doing anything. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but
No, no.
their mortality rate is like shortened big time. So that's why social interaction at this level, like any level, is so important.
It is. And it's so deep when you like Bowlby, he did a lot of work on attachment. So there's wire monkeys. So they have baby infant primates. There's wire monkey mothers, and then there's that have the bottle of milk. So they have the food, right? And for a long time, behaviorists thought, oh, we're just these. You give us food, you give us an appetitive, you give us a reward, and all behaviors from rewards and punishments, whatever. And so they thought these baby monkeys would prefer the wire monkey over this other soft monkey that had no food. And that's not what happened. The baby monkeys clung to the soft monkey, and every once in a while they'd venture out and get some food from the wire monkey. That the attachment is so much more important, especially to a developing brain, and we're always developing.
Uh-huh.
And then the attachment theory. So when your daughter, when she's young and she cries and you meet her needs, she feels safe, seen, and soothed. You do that thousands of times. What happens is that an infant never self-regulates. They never learn. What they do is because you model that, the caregivers model that, the infant literally, their nervous system copies your nervous system. The code in your brain, they copy through that social attachment. And so when we're talking about skill acquisition or corporate goals or anything that seems different from attachment as humans, no, like a leader, you're going, if you have an attachment with a follower, they are going to be able to soak up that information in their limbic system a million times faster than just through a textbook or learning or a course. And so with the horse, the reason that horses are so important for this model is because with a horse, you cannot talk to them. There's corporate leadership retreats, there's equine assisted therapy. Horses are so limbic that it's a constraint removed. We can't use, humans cannot use our hands. We can't use our words and our abstract neocortex with horses. You are forced to talk to them in your limbic system because that's all they can read. They're masters. People can say whatever they want around horses, but the horse knows the truth. And so they're an amazing way to remove that or add that constraint. And then people are faced with themselves, which is why I think horses are so healing on so many levels. But yeah, all of it. Yeah, like you said, this is our architecture. We're made for this, whether you like it or not, whether it's uncomfortable or not. And a problem and why I want more centaurs is that I can give you a course, I can give you all this information free about misdirecting negative behavior as a parent or about regulating your nervous system. But you as a human, you will do best if you can see somebody that you care about and look up to, model that. And your subconscious and your brain will then have that code and that program and copy it. I can't just feed it to you cognitively. So when I say I want more centaurs, I want to model this. I have a vision of finding more videos and capturing moments where we come across like a video game, like a level. You do a level with Mario and you die, and you do a and you die. We need to see, and children see this with parents. We need to see our leaders fail over and over in that moment, and then win, and then our nervous system and our brain will know how to go over that hurdle. So much of like education is just this is the way you do A, this is B, and you layer these skills. But we need to see those failure points and model those. And so I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm giving it to my brain. I don't know how, I mean, you're writing a book on play. It's perfect. But we need to see more of that modeling from our leaders. And the only time you see that kind of intimacy, that failure, is if you have a very close corporate leader who will let you peek in on that, or a parent. But we don't see other teachers show that. But that's what we need to learn from those failures.
That it's in our society nowadays where failure is viewed as bad. Mistakes are bad, and
Well, they
that's
feel
what's
bad. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
exactly
like, yeah.
exactly. But the biochemical reaction that happens when you make a mistake is so profound because that's learning. Because you
Yeah.
won't, you'll co. I could be wrong, but it's degeneracy. You come up with different solutions for one problem, and it's there's no one set way of doing things, and
Hmm.
that's what is going through education, anything of the sort. And also, like, it provides value to the person when you've made so many different mistakes and you've come across these dots, which I'm taking from my conversation with Kathy Sierra, is when you accumulate more dots, you can kind of pull against or like call upon those dots in
Hmm.
that moment of that 95%, which is your body, your
Hmm.
other intelligence, which I'm not coining it, but I'm calling it like it's your play intelligence,
Hmm.
where it's
Hmm.
that you have this experience, but it's not like a computer, which would defy all the laws of ecological dynamics, where you can just pull that up. But it's like your body knows what to do in this moment. But if you've been only exposed to this is one set way, you're very fragile
Yeah. Extremely
versus
fragile. Yeah.
anti-fragile, which Nassim Taleb talks about, and I've read his book Anti-Fragility many times. And it's like a diamond. Like, how are diamonds made? Through pressure, through all that, through raw, unfinished, messy carbon. That's how us humans are when it comes towards learning and problem solving.
Hmm.
And it's huge. And that's one thing that, as I'm going through my writing my book, honestly, I think what like through I'm going on a tangent, but like my mental side, and this is kind of me being in through the system. I'm 30 years old and I went through education, formal education, all that stuff, and being taught like things have to be perfect.
Hmm.
Well, I'm trying to embody, and I think I've gone through 70 different revisions of my book, like,
Well, after writing a
and
book, yeah, the writing is easy. It's the editing that's
yeah,
the hardest part. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think after the 20th time editing, I scrapped it and redid it, and then kind of scrapped it and redid it. Now I think I'm on something that feels okay, but I'm about to be like, you know what? It may be unfinished, it may be messy, but it's going to be out there. And the hardest thing that I'm trying to find is trying to embody this messy flow with this book and writing it,
Hmm.
because a lot of times in today's world, books have to be so structured, so neat, so perfect, and everything honestly has to be that way, whatever you put out into the world. I'm trying to not do that. And
That's yeah. No, you should. It's so interesting. Do you mind? I have a tangent
ab-
that makes me think of.
absolutely, this is what this is all about. I love this. It's not structured. And before, when I had my initial podcast, before I relaunched this, it was so structured. And I was like, I even told my wife, I was like, I feel so weird being so structured, because I had talked with Rob Gray on my original podcast and it felt so structured. But anyway, go ahead.
So there's two things. There's a point I wanted to make that circles to something we talked about earlier. So a lot of times, like we're taught, like you were probably taught, I was taught, like stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, or you have to shut down your emotion to be calm, right? So, and Kathy Sear has said this in her podcast. We're trying to train for a side effect, right? So when we're trying to tell children you should be stoic, you should be calm, right? That calmness is a side effect of emotional regulation. So we can't cue that. We can't tell people to do that. If they do the work and get aligned, they are going to be calm. But we try to force that, like almost, it's not a biomechanic end state. We're trying to say, oh, be in this frame with your body. We're trying to tell them, be in this frame with your emotions, but that will happen if they become aligned. Okay, so that was number one thing I was going to say. Like, it's not bad that we want or we're trying to get our children to be calm. It needs to be a side effect, not the end
Hmm.
goal, right? Okay, and then the second thing was this perfection with books or on social media. Like, there was this, I wish I had his name because I don't want to put words or in somebody's mouth, but a lot of times when you post on social media, people will attack you about typos, right?
Hmm.
Right? They'll point out a typo. They make a comment about the typo. And this man said, the fact, you do you, if that makes you feel better, whatever. Your focus on that typo is what's making it difficult for you to connect with your horse and get things done. So this is a horse example. But that that attention, that perfectionism is what's stopping you, and you're probably in your worldview here, connecting dots, is stopping you from being playful. You know what I mean? Like, you
Hmm.
think there's a perfect outcome when really there's all these other possibilities. And what two of my one of my favorite mottos for everything is, if I take away your struggle, I take away your victory. So if people don't struggle, if we don't have a level in a video game, or we don't have something, a movement or a social conflict, if we don't have the struggle, there's no victory. You have to
Hmm.
have it. So it should be pretty exciting, actually. Like, the bigger the struggle, the better that more dopamine you're going to get. You talked about that in one of your blog posts.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of that, I'm trying to formulate my thought and make
Yeah,
this a
connect the dots.
cool
Yeah, go
segue.
ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Um, when you talk about like this regulation, and one thing that I've noticed like these past few years, like from mental illness and all that, or mental health issues, like I go through it. I've been taught how to. I'm my biggest self critic. Like I'm
Hmm.
so self critical, and ultimately, what made me step away from me being an athlete as a discus thrower. I had a pretty successful career, and I had aspirations to go to the Olympics and whatnot. And I made it to the 2016 Olympic trials and whatnot. But what I didn't have that joy or play anymore, because I was so self-critical, where things have to be so technical, and like track and field is such a technical sport,
Hmm.
to be perfect. And that's just how I was raised on, like, you got to focus on the outcome. What can you do now in this moment for black and white purposes, and not mess with the gray or the spectrum area.
Hmm.
And with this emotional regulation, what I'm trying to get at is actually, I'll be completely candid and transparent. Actually, these past couple of days have been honestly so demoralizing on my value because I've been told about 12 times that I'm not getting a job, like
Hmm.
told no. And I'm just like beat myself up because I don't have this value. But that's the part of it. You
Hmm.
told that if you, like you just said, if you take away the struggle, you take away your success or take away that, I'd probably just butchered that.
Yeah, the victory. Yeah, take away the
Your
victory.
victory,
Hmm.
take away the victory. If I was told yes every single time, like, hey, we'd love to hire you, or yes, like to everything that I put out in the world, if someone told me no, then I'd be like so broken and shut down and I wouldn't know what to do. And that's kind of like what I was going through these past couple days. But now looking back at it, these last 48 to 72 hours, I'm like, I know what I'm worth.
Hmm.
I know my value. I know my ideas are good because one, people are telling me that, and I never thought my ideas would go anywhere. I just started writing, and what the hell, I'm here, and all this. And then people like you are just telling me, hey, I would love to talk with you, and telling me it. That's why
Yeah.
when you posted that reel on Instagram, I literally almost cried because I was like, oh my God. Like,
Somebody
so
sees me. Yeah, somebody sees what I'm
exactly,
doing. Yeah, they get it. Yeah, it's
exactly,
valuable. Yeah,
exact.
it is.
So I think I again that it's this whole thing is a mess, and what you need to do, and I think a lot of people are trying to avoid, is that uncomfortable, messy
Yeah.
portion of where you want to be in life. And if I could go back to being an athlete again, oh, I would do things so much differently and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just be in this moment, have fun with this because it's such a technical sport that I was in that you have to do it this way or this way or this way or this way. I had a coach actually. He's actually a still good friend of mine. He lived in Arizona after I graduated, and he had this system. It was called the pillar system of the discus throw. It was 6 pillars, and there was about 20 different drills in each pillar. And I went to many of his camps, and he's like, "Oh, you have to turn your foot this way,
Hmm.
exactly this way, and shift it." And I'm just like, that's so much to think about. I'm just like, and then when I'm reviewing footage, I'm like, oh, my foot's not turned this way, and the discus isn't here, blah blah blah. This is why I didn't throw well. And then I'm just like, when it came towards meet day, it just went. It was
Yeah.
just like,
Well,
what
it's
the
an
fuck,
internal
what happened?
focus of control, and it makes us that kind of neurotic. I mean, it just throws us all off. I know Kathy
Yeah.
recommended this book, The Inner Game of Tennis. Totally
Yep.
read it because it explains everything.
Uh huh.
Um, and then Andre Agassi, do you remember him? Do you ever hear about him? He went through
Yes.
something
It.
similar. His
Yep.
biography, he talks about he
Uh
lost
huh.
all joy of tennis, and then he started over with keeping that joy.
Uh huh.
And it's a great story. And then emotional regulation, like you kind of touched on this, but this modern, very modern, recent thing where if anybody feels any anxiety, any depression, anything, they emotional regulation is not that you're just a flat heartbeat, right?
Uh
Emotional
huh.
regulation is that you go up and then you come to baseline. You go down, you come to baseline. It's coming back to equilibrium over and over. And the skill of emotional regulation is that you can go up and come back down. You can become anxious and realize this is temporary, it's telling me something, and then the system goes back to homeostasis. The problem is we get up there and there's this idea, just like you said, like you're not allowed to fail. Every human being is going to feel anxious.
Uh
Every
huh.
one of us is going to there's this book called Good Reasons for Bad Feelings. It's an evolutionary psychology look at why depression and anger and all of these quote bad emotions are incredibly useful. So useful. Like they're our friends in so many ways. Now, they can't, because the body's localized and emotions are kind of present, our cognition can help you. Like, you can look back in the past few days and be like, hey, I'm worth way more than whatever employment or these interviews or these lack of getting a job. I'm worth more than that. Your cognition can help you through that, right? But it of course you're going to feel a tang of rejection and fear and panic, like how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to whatever, right?
Uh
There's
huh.
a humans are so complex. We're so cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we have feelings about our feelings and emotions about our emotions and thoughts about our and then oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Uh
But
huh.
that ultimately, like this emotional regulation too, that there, and you and I kind of touched on this in some of our Instagram comments. Like, we understand this subconsciously. We have stories about this. The hero fights the dragon to get the gold. The hero goes into the cave where nobody else wants to go, right? You take a hero's journey, you go look at things you don't want to look at, and that's the gold. Like going through unemployment temporarily, that is going to give you gold that nothing else will give you.
Hmm.
And oh,
And
there's another good book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and it's about how people who rise in the corporate world, they just get surrounded by yes men. They don't know how to take negative feedback, and the best thing you can do is lean in to anything negative. Like that
uh
gives you the gold. The dragon gives you the gold. So, anyway.
yes, no, for sure. And like going through this blip in my story, this adventure, and I say it in my newsletters, like I'm just a guy going through his own D&D campaign, all
Yeah,
that stuff. I'm
it's
a big
life.
nerd. It's life, and I'm a big nerd. Actually, funny enough, I'm starting a new campaign with my brother-in-law and a couple friends this weekend, so I'm pretty excited. And I'm kind of leaning into something completely different. So,
Hmm.
another side note. But looking at this, it's I've been fired before, let go before, and due to like rejection and just like different nature of sports. Like, there's a lot of turnover. People don't
Hmm.
believe in what you say, or like you're questioning things, and they're like, "Nope, we're gonna get rid of you. Our contracts are done." Blah 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 blah. With this last one was actually the reason why this one stings a little bit more and has brought up so much transformation. It's kind of like, actually, I think in my newsletter that I just unprompted posted before we got on this call, it talks about like just I dive into my love for Marvel and I talk about Thanos, how he wants to get rid of half the universe and stuff like that, and actually look at it. But how forced are burned down to get new growth or like
Hmm.
anything like that. This one's kind of that same because I thought this job was I got out of the sports performance realm, went into corporate America, got a desk job, and I thought I was I'm gonna stay here for 30 years, retire and die,
Hmm.
basically. Well, they got rid of me because I was trying to be innovative, and I'll be completely honest, they got rid of me because there was a policy that I didn't know and I wasn't aware of, and I used artificial intelligence, and they said, nope, we're getting rid of you, even though I know other people are using it. Um, and in today's world, artificial intelligence is everywhere. It's just how
It's
you
not
use
going
it.
anywhere either. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
we
going
better.
in, it's
Yeah.
not going anywhere, and I use it actually as a sparring partner for anything that I do, like bounce ideas off of. Because one, my brain moves a million miles per hour, and I like, oh, that's a cool idea. It's gone. It's a
Hmm.
cool idea. It's gone. So I throw it in there and all that stuff. That it's actually helping me write my book too,
Hmm.
um, too. But it kind of was that aha moment where it's just like I need agency in my life. I need to become the main character in my own story. And actually, the newsletter that kind of helped me start this was actually a guy that I actually get some pretty good influence from. And what you said before, it's like trying to model ourselves like
Yes,
people that we're
yes.
drawn to.
Hmm.
His name's Dan Coe, K
Oh,
O
yeah,
E.
I got his email in my inbox today. Yeah. I think I
I
just signed
love
up for something like his paid tier or
Yep.
whatever. Yeah.
Yep. I love how he writes and how he says things. And I kind of like model some of the stuff that he says and kind of take it like the Bruce Lee, like take what you find useful, discard what is not, and make what uniquely is your
Hmm.
own. That's kind of what I'm doing with his. But it was his art. His newsletter said, you're not meant to be an NPC, non
Hmm.
playable character. And I was an NPC in someone else's story where they are the main character, and reading through this and while I'm going through this time of unemployment, I was like, holy shit. Like we're all put on this timeline that or this path that is already dedicated to us already. You grow up, go to school, get a job, get a degree, get a job, retirement, die.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't want that. I want to be able to one in today's world, like money is a thing. We need to be able to pay stuff and all that.
Well,
And
and money
so
too.
like
Like, well, and we should. I'm going to stop you there because you're
go
doing
ahead.
some self-employment stuff. Money. I was an economics major. Money is a reflection of the value that you give other people. You know what I mean? Like, there's no
Yeah.
reason to be scared of it. There's no reason to think, oh, I only need enough. No, no. The more money you have, the more you have helped other people.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's what really kind of jump started me writing my newsletter for Hammer and Anvil, which is an ode to Nikolai Bernstein for his
Yeah, his
blacksmith
hammer,
therapy.
repetition with
Yep.
that repetition. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So that was my ode to him. And I was like, I love that. I'm going to stick with that and kind of all that. But start that. And I was like, oh, you can actually do something with a newsletter, make money off of it. I have a few paid subscribers already. You're one of them, including, and so which I'm very grateful
Yeah,
for.
that's what I
And
have. I have a paid
yeah,
newsletter too. Like the scope, the
and
scaling is just
hmm
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, and people are like telling me like, hey, you should like we love what you're doing. That validation. I was like, I'm on to this, and like affordances, like opportunities of action, or like where my curiosity is going, and it's just like that's this part is where my regrowth is happening, and that's
Yeah.
all part of this whole thing of life. It's not one structured way of doing it, and that's the
Life is a
mindset that
game.
we
Yeah.
exactly. Life is a game. You got to play it, and
Yeah.
people think it's just you're following your path and stuff like that. And for me, like this is me just touching on it, and I'm not like anti-religion or anything like that. That's why I never, when I grew up, I was always go to church, all that stuff. God has this way, this path laid out for you, and everything. I was like, but it's my path. Like I'm playing this game. I'm not, and I probably will get some flack for that, but whatever. But it's my path. It's my game. I'm
Well,
playing
yeah.
it, and I've got to make the mistakes and all that stuff. By all means, you can believe in whatever you want and all that stuff. Actually, my wife and I actually just started going to church just for fun because it was like, oh, just try for the social architecture of it because
Right.
something
Yeah.
is, it's beautiful. And I'm just like, oh, I'm taking something from it. But I think kind of bringing it back to this centaur moment where it's just like you in this, the, in my one of my episodes of Kathy Sierra. Hence, this is going to be episode 4 with you and I. But
Four's
so
my
early
favorite
on in
number.
the,
That's amazing. I'm
you
just gonna
know,
say.
I grew up in Wisconsin for most of my life, so or for a majority of my life. So I'm a big Packers fan. So Brett Favre, number 4. So this is a good one.
Hmm.
Um, so um, she talks about the 5% where it's your toddler brain, and the 95%
Hmm.
where it's your I call the play intelligence. That's just my way of looking at it and how I comprehend it.
Hmm.
With your journey through leading up to now, how has that really played a factor? When was this aha moment that you noticed this?
Oh gosh. Because where do I start? So I mentioned this, but I used to think that emotions were a waste of time. And I grew up in a not so great situation. Like I was orphaned by the at the time I was 16, and I had younger siblings, and they were put in foster care. Like things were not good in my, you know, there were good things about my parents did their best, but it was not a good functional situation. And so there's a theory that when a child doesn't get that social engagement, they become overly analytical. So it's a constraint. Again, they don't have the social emotional regulation, and so we become overly cognitive in a way, right? Or like the idea that somebody who's blind has stronger sense of hearing or whatever. So I became extremely analytical. I was an alcoholic by my early 20s. I've been sober 20 years. Huge bottom. Like I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to me, and it was the best, honestly. And over time I learned that people mattered. Like you didn't have to have the right answer. My strategy in the game of life was to have the right answer and be the best and outperform and outsmart everybody, but there was something lacking. When I got sober, I learned pieces of it, got more emotional regulation, had some mentorship that was different. And then when I had children, everything changed. I learned about Adler. I learned the best book. I think I've read 3 parenting books my whole life because all the answers were there for me. Everything was magic. Children the Challenge by Rudolph Dreikers, and that gave me so much encouragement. I have 4 kids, by the way. I have 2 teenagers and one. My youngest is 11. So parenting, and then finally had the resources to get into horses. I got into horses when I was very young. They've always been my favorite thing in the world. Total fascination. And I finally was able to get into horses. I'm a director of analytics, so I have a very analytic job in programming and data and analysis. And when I mixed, I had an Adlerian mentor in the corporate world. I mixed parenting, corporate leadership, self development, like through recovery and things like that, because I've always been interested in being better at things, and then the horses. And in the past few years, I signed up for a program because I've always wanted to write a book. And what I thought I was going to write about was completely different than what this book was. And I connected all of these dots for the Centaur model. And to me, it explains how to get in alignment, how to live as a centaur, why you should care about it. And that's where I am. I mean, it's just it's the coolest thing. I love living this way. I and I think that we compartmentalize sometimes, understandably so. Like there's your hobby you, there's your spouse you, there's your friends you, there's your work you, there's your parent you. And I am the same person in all areas. And I live as a centaur in all areas. And I want more people to feel that way, that they don't have to like shut off their corporate brain and turn on their dad brain or whatever. Because as long as you're with humans and you are human, and if you're with mammals, like any kind of animal, but especially a horse, a half-ton neurotic flight animal, you know what I mean? Like if you were in a car, like you know how you were talking about how when you rode your horse and you pulled the rein one way and the horse went the other way, if the car did that to you, would you ever get in a car? Like if you slammed on the brakes and the car didn't, it'd be terrifying. Horses are terrifying in that way, but that's what makes them fun. And
Hmm.
that's why the struggle to figure out how to haptically, you know, through touch, which is a huge like a mammalian touch is so intimate. You know what I mean? You're either going to hurt somebody or you're going to groom and bond with somebody. So for a horse
Hmm.
to let us touch them is huge. So yes, all of these dots came together in my centaur book and in my desire to help more people become centaurs and reclaim this social, this heart, this limbic aspect that we're built for, and that we, like I said, you're going to teach your daughter how to talk without ever taking a course. You have that intelligence, and we all do. And I want us to reclaim that. It's like how I'm kind of interested in parkour, but when I look at a landscape, it's just overwhelming. But if I can see another human being at my level doing a movement, I can emulate them, right? And so
Hmm.
I want to be able to build up a herd of centaurs and show people this is how you get through conflict with people. This is how you get through these emotions in yourself. This is how you get through it with your horse. And the more that I can model that, the more we can ripple it out and have more centaurs and reclaim this social intelligence that we have.
I love that. I love that. That's pretty powerful. That your whole story and leading up to where you are now. That's awesome.
Yeah, I
You
want to give
talked
back. And
about,
that's a
yeah.
mammalian cycle, like we become
Yep.
parents and it's fun to be a parent. Like we
Hmm.
want to give back. So, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, like being a parent has its tough times,
Oh,
but
yeah. Take away the struggle, you
it's
take away the
yeah,
victory. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. But it's never the same from parent to parent, kid to kid.
Hmm.
Because you hear it from time and time again. I've heard it from people saying, "Oh yeah, the second one is a little bit better, or the third one's the worst, or so whatever it is. Their toddlers are were, or this my kid was good during this." It's like
Yeah.
it's it's not a one size fits all
No, it's
type
not.
of thing, and you got to adapt to how it is and how my wife and I did it. Like we were very reluctant on that. We survived through that, and we did it very functionally. We did it
Yeah.
well, and look where we're at now. But you talk about you actually talked about how like getting into parkour where I learned this from. It's like some people are using parkour now in like the sports performance world as like a donor sport where it's like looking at different landscapes or trying to open people up to like looking at different landscapes or different their environment a little bit different.
Hmm.
Um, I actually and I'm debating on putting this in my book, but also I'm probably going to put it on social media or even my newsletter saying, look at a chair for about a minute and come up with 10 different ways that you can use a chair not for sitting.
Hmm.
And like you can use it to use as a ladder, as a pillow fort. Even if you're small enough as a child, you can use it as a jungle gym, or you could use it as like a surfboard. My daughter, I have a rocking chair outside here, and she loves rocking it and like stands in like surfboard style or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like in her own mind, it's like those affordances, like those opportunities for action are everywhere. It's just our sense of seeing it as is so strong in today's world. Like you see a chair, oh, you sit in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
No, like there's different ways to use a chair or use a table, use anything around you. It can be used for whatever your imagination. The sky's a limit. Even past the sky's a limit.
Mm-hmm.
But if your sky is this far, like you can't go any further. And I think with your vision of people being more centaurs and being able to look at it from a 3,000 foot perspective instead of being in front of the tree, you look at the whole forest,
Mm-hmm.
is going to change how people are moving forward. And honestly, I was reading this too recently about entrepreneurship and something that I've thought about doing. Like I tried doing it like in the past of like having my own online personal training or like sports performance thing, and it failed because I was like it's not going to be well, or like I'm not going to do well, so I shut it down. And it's like it's not perfect having that
Yeah.
model. But entrepreneurships, the people who have are the most successful have gone through ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and they've been able to adapt to it. Look at Apple, look at Microsoft, look at all these giants, even like Tesla and all that stuff. Like you got to go through the struggles. I think I remember my track coach saying you got to go through hell to get to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to embrace the mess. You got to embrace all that. And I think a lot of people just want that singular focus, that straight linear path all the time.
Oh, of
And
course we do.
that's
Yeah, that's an
that's
attractor, right? Yeah, that's
exactly, it's an attractor, but also me personally, I think it's dehumanizing us. It's
yeah.
making us robots, and we're trying to humans are trying to teach humans to become robots. And in my conversation with Kathy, she said even the roboticists aren't teaching robots how to be humans. They're teaching them how to
Yeah, they're
be
teaching him with the
animals.
animals. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just like, what? Like that was so mind blowing. I have so many gold nuggets from that conversation, even from this one too, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it's just like, why? Like,
Well, we
the,
have to remember, like my pushback on a lot of this kind of stuff is like, there's no person out there like twirling their mustache and being evil, like, oh, children need to sit still because we want
yeah.
robots and factory workers, and you have to go to college. No, every individual in this whole node of humanity, we're attracted to something that looks like the easy way, right? And so it's not that society, it's not that
Mm-hmm.
Western culture, like there's no evil bad guy. It's our fault. Like
Yeah,
we need
it
to
is.
not choose these shallow attractors. And so like what you're doing, you're digging deep. But that's what people need to do, right? And there's no blame on it, right? Like of course you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do what's ever easiest. But the more that we can tell people, especially like at Larian parenting or some of the Centaur stuff that I teach, you know, the slow way is the fast way ultimately. The hard way is the easy way. Once you get the basics, the hard stuff, the fancy stuff with horses is easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that basic stuff. So finding something that's uncomfortable, being unemployed for a while, trying a business and failing. Like the people who are good at stuff have failed more times than most people have even
Yep.
tried, you know? And finding this, Adler talks a lot about encouragement. When your daughter learned to walk, she probably fell down a few times, right? But we don't just say when a child falls down, oh, that's not for you. You need to go get a brace. We need to get a specialist. No, you just accept you're going to fall down. There's going to be periods of unemployment. That's how you learn to walk. There's going to be times when you're going to get a bad review and you can learn from it, right? Or there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
times when, I don't know, like I tell my kids all the time, life is pass fail. If you get a C, like you can go to the next level. Like you do not have to be perfect. But we use that limiting belief to stop us. Like it sounds like you just need to get that book out. It can be imperfect. You can always write another book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I totally wish I could rewrite my book with CLA more in mind, but oh well, I'll just write another one, or it'll put in
Yeah.
my newsletter. But don't let the
Yeah.
enemy, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like get it out there. People need to hear
It,
this stuff.
yeah, exactly. No, that's kind of what I'm for sure doing it. I told myself, I put it out there in social media, and my wife was like, that feels like a lot of pressure. I said, I'm going to put it out in August. It's like, because me thinking, because I'm a big football fan. So NFL preseason starts in August.
Hmm.
So I'm just like, we're going to put it August 1st. And she's
Yeah,
like, that's
yeah.
a lot of pressure. And I'm like, you know what?
That makes the
With
diamond.
not, yeah, exactly. And so now I'm doing it where I actually lost a friendship over this because I use AI to help me write, just
Hmm.
because it helps me organize that. Like, it's helping me write this in such a quick manner, but organize my thoughts in such a unique way that I love, and I think it will be impactful,
Hmm.
but it's also teaching me so much. And he actually is anti anything
Hmm.
like that, and he's just like, yeah, no, this does not sound like you. I hate it, like blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, that's fine. I'm on my own path, all that stuff. But you said that it's like the when a kid is learning to walk, they fall down multiple times and all that. They
We're
learn from
still
all that.
thrilled. We're so
Exactly.
thrilled as parents, right? Or like you said, when they talk,
Exactly.
they're not pronouncing things. We are thrilled, and so we need that same encouragement for our own failures. Like it's the best thing
Uh-huh.
possible, you know?
Exactly. And so, like, my wife and her family, so we live 5 minutes away from her sister and her mom and everything. So we're really close, and they know me as the goofy guy. So I'm always messing around. So whenever my daughter is like making any type of noise, like babbling, I'm reciprocating that to her, and we're having our own little language and stuff like that, and just dancing and moving around. So it's like, and being playful, and that's how she learns and all that stuff. And right now she's one of her
Playful. Hmm.
teachers right now, yeah, her teacher, one of her favorite teachers that was with her since the very beginning, she unfortunately she had to go somewhere else, and so got a new teacher, and she doesn't like this new teacher. So anytime you bring her in, she's crying, screaming, and it's like, but whenever we pick her up, she's like, her teacher says she's totally fine. She had a great time and all that stuff. And she's just, and I'm looking at it as like, it's a phase. This is a valley
Yeah.
moment for her. But also like cognitively and like emotionally, she's figuring things out. And I'm like, I'm letting her, my wife and I are just like, let her bask in it, like learn from it, and not
Hmm.
just be like, no, 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 no. It's like all that, like telling her, like obviously we say, yeah, it's okay, all that, but we're comforting her and all that stuff, but letting her bask in that. And I think what we need to do is we gotta bask in these mistakes. We gotta bask in the uncertainty because, like you mentioned, like we're so attracted to the easy way, and
Yeah. Of course we are. Yeah.
it's our own fault in the situation that we're in today, like the modern era. This is all our fault because we're so used to easy.
Hmm.
Because the human, what we love to do is not to be away from homeostasis. We love comfort. We
Hmm.
love this. If it's easy, it's good, but it's dehumanizing us. It's also making us so separated from our ancestors, because how did we get from cavemen and women to where we are today?
Yeah.
I It's like, how did we go from being living in life or death situation, fight or flight situations out in the wild to today? Because we embraced that mess. We learned, we played, we experimented, and we did all these things. And it's I think a lot of people are forgetting that. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do. And with my writing, my books, how I talk, and all that stuff, I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert. I'm no PhD or any. I'm just I look at myself as just this person speaking his mind, and just kind of like, these are my ideas. If you like them, good. If you don't, okay, cool. But with this book, I never thought I would ever get to this point, because I wanted to. I'm leaning into that messiness, that
Hmm.
uncomfortableness, and I'm sure you went through that too, writing your book too, and anything that you've learned in life and try to apply things, like you've leaned into that more and more, and learning to be that centaur.
Hmm. Yeah, we have
And
to. Yeah, it's interesting. My husband and I talk about this a lot. He's a PE teacher and a math teacher, and We talk about how so much of modern life, we have removed the constraints that made us amazing humans that we are.
Hmm.
Like your example for chairs is perfect. Like I'm sitting in a chair right now, right? But we have we don't want to sit on the ground, even though it'd be better for us in a lot of ways. We make it easier, and that actually ends up hurting us. It's a very stoic kind of way of looking at it. But the good news is that we do have this cognition that sees that. And so even if you were in, quote, perfect posture all day, it still wouldn't be good. We need to be dynamic. We need to move. We need to be playful in this game
Uh-huh.
of life. And so, like, even though there's a tendency for people to be really pessimistic about this, I am super optimistic. I think that
Uh-huh.
knowing that we need dragons, our fascinations, like like you just said, you like football, you've been in track and field. I'm not Dungeons and Dragons.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine like making a workout, like a workout of the day based on a Dungeons and Dragons game? Like if you had to be a
Yeah.
DM that did, like that'd be an amazing way to make it meaningful, right?
Yeah.
But our brain's not dumb, like we're not going to. I think about this a lot. It's a cold example, but like one of the ways they tortured people in concentration camps is they would make them move stones from one pile to another. And so it wasn't just torture to physically move something, but it was torture to be doing something that had no purpose. Like self determination, like we need purpose, we need meaning. Humans are meaning makers. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm really curious. So there's other pieces that I'm fascinated by. For instance, I went through an eating disorder. I was running half marathons and powerlifting. I'm really into fitness, right? And I found out it was a dead end because that health should be a side effect of what we do, not like the metric itself. There's a
Uh-huh.
book, The Tyranny of Metrics, all about how progress is good, but if you let the metric, I think it's Godwin's law, the metric loses its value once you focus on this metric. So, health and fitness, like I think dieting is a perfect example of another, biomechanically correct way to do things, or, you know, like kind of a go to school, go to college, get a job, retire. It's an attractor. It's like, oh, I'll be happy if I'm thin. And most people are not. Like, that's not what they ultimately want. And it wrecks your body to diet. So
Uh-huh.
there's that. And then also economics, the same thing. Like localized individuals making decisions comes to an equilibrium in a market far better than what a central planner can do. So all of these fascinations allow me to play life a little differently than your fascinations. And it's those fascinations that are going to give rise to creativity and value for people that's totally different than what a computer is going to come up with, right? So,
Yep.
or a formula. There's no formula for
Yep.
life. Like it literally is like go to what you're attracted to, overcome it, get those skills, and then go to the next level. You and I have
Uh-huh.
collected experience that allows us to write books. Nobody else is writing books like this. I don't know anybody. I call myself the world's expert on Adlerian psychology and parenting and horsemanship because nobody else is talking about it, right?
Yeah.
And so you and your mix of fascinations, you're your own niche, So
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, for sure. And I love the little you're your own niche from Dan Coe. He talks about that quite a
mhm.
bit. Um, you talked about how like when you focus on the metric, you kind of loses its value.
Yeah.
I held the hat of a sports scientist at one point, and I kind of leaned heavily on like monitoring dashboards as like
Yes.
I got near the end of my tenure as a sports performance coach, strength and conditioning coach, whatever you want to call it. I used a lot of monitoring daily wellness, metrics, tonnage, all that stuff, and like wanting to dive into the world of, data analytics and all that stuff. And like, I'm still fascinated by it because it tells its own story.
It does, yeah.
I've been able to see that, but also like, people are trying to value like, do you have this certification, all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go down that path, and also it takes time and money, which I don't want to spend time on because I was a terrible student in class, in school. I barely made out of high school. I almost got kicked out of college my first semester,
Mhm.
just because it was boring to me. I hated sitting there and doing any of that.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, but looking at the metric and people being so focused on that, when you talk about nutrition, a lot of people focus on like, oh, I have to get my macros in. I have to be
Yeah, I did
eating
macros. Yeah.
this, yeah, eating this many calories a day. all that stuff. And I tried that as an athlete, and it was so just like
Well, you're
I'm
also
a stick.
fighting a system that, like, your cravings are so much smarter than any app.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? As long as you feed
Exactly,
it real food, like,
exactly.
and ice cream's real fruit. Like, I don't mean to like say like you have to be perfect, but like your body,
Yeah,
the wisdom of our bodies and energy management is insane. Like the idea
exactly.
that you could central plan. Like no wonder people have eating. I mean, that's my second book. So
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
I could go off on a tangent on this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. But yeah, when people are so focused on this idea of like you have to eat cleanly no matter what, every single moment of the day,
Hmm.
and one, in today's reality, it's so expensive, and two, it's not feasible because we have these cravings. Like some days I want, like yesterday, I told my wife, like, hey, I want to go out and get Raising Canes because like I just want to get
Hmm.
fried chicken. It's like that
Yeah.
sounds good to me, but then it's like, but then one day, oh, we're gonna eat cleanly this day because that sounds good to us, or this day, and all that
Exactly.
stuff.
That
And
intuitive
exactly,
eating is wonderful. Yeah.
exactly, and that's embracing this flow, this mess, this what attracts us. Like phenomenon is just like you go with different attractors or different affordances that provide itself in life because and a lot of people aren't in tune with that. They're not in
No.
tune with their
Well,
internal compass.
yes, yes,
Some people,
and
yes, but no.
yeah, and those things can turn into addiction. So if
Yes.
you get a dopamine hit because you think, "Oh, I'm getting closer to my goal." Like people get addicted to
Hmm.
alcohol. I mean, it's a case in point, right? Because you're not getting other needs met. It's almost always a self-medication. I actually have a list of things. This is not, I did not prep for this, but this is just a list I was thinking of.
That's
Like,
what this is all about.
you know, I'm going to list all these things. Video games, this obsession aesthetically with luxury, like you see this on a lot of social media. Fast food, alcohol, celebrities, drugs, social media, smoking, scrolling, porn, alcohol, fast food. All of this stuff, all of these are hijacked desires that are good in a way. But if you think, for example, that alcohol is going to get you friendships, it's going to get you the life of the party and relaxation, when you ingest something and your brain gets that dopamine hit saying, oh, I'm going to get on my way, and then you don't get the payoff, what actually happens is like extinction theory or extinction behavior. So when
Hmm.
rats were given like food from a pellet, like they press a pellet, or I'm sorry, they press a lever in the lab, they get a food pellet. Once they get that over time, when they don't get the pellets, they go through extinction bursts where they press the pellet thousands of times. It's like when the lights go out in your house, the electricity goes out, and what do? Everybody flips the switch a million times, right? Or your mouse doesn't work, everybody click, click, clicks. So
Hmm.
we can become addicted where we repeat behavior that we think should give us an outcome, but it doesn't. So there are modern things that have kind of hijacked that. But if we realize this, like our cognitions, we're usually smart enough to get out of it, but people do go down into these addiction rabbit holes. So it's important, like I tell my kids with food, like, or video games or screen time, like if you're getting done what you need to get done, if you a big thing with us in our house is that if you're on the computer and somebody comes up to you to ask you a question, you have to make eye contact. If you're not make eye contact, if you're not doing your chores, if you're not doing things that you said you were going to do, you can't have screen time. So it's a holistic view at all of the
Yes.
behavior to make sure it doesn't become addictive, because people who are addicted don't eat. You know what I mean? They don't
Hmm.
interact with others. Alcoholics don't go to work. Whatever. I mean, I'm touching on it, but that dopamine can get hijacked in a bad way. So we have to be
Yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with you on that. And a lot of us, even today, where we have, all the knowledge in our
I
hands
know,
with the phone, and
with the phone.
I'm a victim of it. My wife gives me a
Everyone
lot
is,
of
yeah.
shit about like scrolling, doom scrolling. It's just like it's just something that hits us. It's a quick dopamine hit, and
Yeah.
we want it more and more and more and more. And it's being able to, notice that and feel that and be internal and be like, okay, what am I actually doing? It's like, what is this getting towards is something that I think a lot of people need to realize, even myself. Like, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. And they need to realize that. And all of this, even applying constraints to that, there's people. My wife actually jokes like she might get one of those like things off of Amazon that you put your phone in and it
Like a,
locks it
yeah.
for a time, like a phone jail, legit phone jail. And it's like you can't use it. And it's like, don't do that because I'm going to go crazy. But maybe I need that. That's a constraint.
Yeah, that's a
And then you got to
constraint.
adapt
Yeah.
to it. That's a constraint, and you got to do that. And
That's the
I talk
Odyssey
about
and
it.
the Siren, Odysseus and the Sirens, you know?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. And talking about that limitations aren't bad, but limitations are good for growth and development. And we need to go through that sometimes. Like, I know this is my thought of like someone going through addiction. Like, I know it's hard because that's your world at that moment, like being addicted to alcohol or drugs, and that's your whole world, and you need that. But sometimes you gotta put that constraint of getting yourself out of that social experiment, that social architecture,
Yeah.
or like get rid of it out of the house and be like, if it's out of mind, out of sight kind of thing. That's kind of like you gotta put constraints on to get growth. It's going to be
Yes.
uncomfortable. Hell yes, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's going to put you on a better path and a different path to, you know, the promised land, whatever that is in your mind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, alcoholics, we're lucky because you don't have to have alcohol. There's people that are
Yeah.
addicted to other things that you have to interact with, food or relationships or whatever. So
Hmm.
I'm lucky that that's with alcohol. But yeah, addiction's a very human thing. Like it makes total
Yeah.
sense, you know. No wonder.
Exactly.
And like screens
Exactly.
too, like everybody scrolls. We haven't as a culture figured out how to deal with this yet. And some people are like, "Oh, it's going to be the." I'm like, I'm really excited to see what we come up with. Like
Hmm.
humans traditionally, we have a rich cultural tradition of a lot of different things. Like you'll hear, fairy tales. They encode a lot of wisdom for children, right? In a subconscious kind of dreamlike way of explaining, like Red Riding Hood, don't go off with strangers or whatever. And they're much more deep than that. They're so interesting, but we just haven't come up with the fairy tales for phones yet. And we
Yep.
still call them
No.
phones. They aren't phones. Like you said, they're a communication device with a phone app. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's totally not even a phone anymore, but
I look at it as it's like your second brain, but it's an
in a way, yeah.
artificial. Yeah, it's like I have a few apps on here that I use almost every single day, like AI apps, social media apps, all that stuff. We even have our texting and calling apps, all that stuff. Like it, we have everything in our pocket. And I've even seen this too when I look at it as my artificial era of when I start pulling making a little joke of a Taylor Swift there, but
Yeah, the era.
when I started my book club, it was called Strength Pages back in November of last year, and I wanted to do it was actually based off just an idea my buddy and I came up with. And I was like, oh, I can kind of monetize this and just do it this way where it's perfect, polished, and everything. And I was actually part of Dan Coe's uh, Discord for Cortex, which is one of my main, like his AI second brain that I use quite a bit for organizing my thoughts and stuff and notes. He has his Discord, and there's 20, I want to say 15 to 20,000 members on that
Hmm.
Discord. And I was like, that's what I want. And have it perfect and polished and have it just right there, ease of people. And I was trying to make it so artificial and just like monetize perfect planning, perfect ideas, perfect like marketing. That failed because it didn't feel organic to
Hmm.
me at least. Then when this whole shift happened, with me getting let go and everything, that's when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be organic and real and embody this. I don't want to say ecological way, but like just go with the flow because I wanted to do structure. And I was like, if I get away from structure, I'm happier
Hmm.
and it feels good to me. I probably am. I'm noticing that I just went off on a total different tangent,
No, that's okay.
and that's the part of this I've tried to break away from that structured of this, and probably just lost my whole train of thought there.
That's all right. Well, in the game of life,
Yeah,
like you're playing at the game of life, and
yeah,
so as long as you have, the ultimately the outcomes will, when you try to, when I'm trying to set up an exercise for a writing student, or trying to help my kids get to the next level of whatever skill they're working on, or trying to make a CLA, and I don't know. In the summertime, I don't exercise, so that's a long story. But when I think about a movement, like making a puzzle for me, you just got to think about what is what's the goal here? Like, as long as you're getting an outcome that's real and you feel like a victory, like there's some struggle,
Uh-huh.
then oh my gosh, that's why we're here to experience life.
Exactly. Exactly. No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a nasty bitch once in a while, but it happens.
Yeah,
That's all part of it.
when you're going through it. There was a skill I was trying to figure out with writing, and I've been doing it for months and months and months. I have read all the books. I have tried so many different things. My instruction, I tried so many different things, and I get more despairing. I'm not a fighter. I just want to like freeze and like fine predator
Uh-huh.
eat me, whatever.
Yep.
I I make it about me. So like being unemployed, you make it an identity, like why doesn't anybody want me? It's a rejection constantly, right? So I wasn't making this skill, and I was like, I'm never going to be a good writer. I can't go to the next level. Ultimately the voice was like, there's something wrong with me.
Uh-huh.
And almost overnight, when I flipped it from there's something wrong with me to what does this have to teach me? And I imagined a video game and just getting stuck at this one point, like dying, a Super Mario character, like just dying over and over. And I think I'm not getting anywhere, but not my body, but there's something shifting. There's dots being made, like you said. There's all these experiences, and it felt like overnight. The next time I went out, some dots connected, and I was like, "This is what happens." And then I was able to get the skill that I've been fighting for so long, and it was
Mhm.
the best moment. If I'd only been fighting that for a week, it would have been nothing. Right? No big deal, right?
Yeah.
But I am so proud that I didn't give up and that I kept going. And
No.
and that's what you're doing with all of your fascinations and work now. I mean,
And
a
like,
podcast is a big thing to start too. So,
yeah, no, I've heard it from people too with the podcast. Like, oh, it was actually a few years ago from my wife's friend. Like they grew up together in high school and stuff, and I've met him a few times, and he's a cool guy. And he had a podcast too, and he's like, we ultimately stopped because we felt it was so tough to get guests and be structured
yeah.
and have to put it out each week or every other week. And I was like, when I first did that, I tried to have it where it's like every other week or once a month or like have a structure. And I was just like, now I'm doing it where it's just like, what intrigues me? Like,
Yeah.
for who the one funny thing is, I got a pretty big following in the martial arts community in the
Hmm.
world. And I was like, why me? Like, why this world? Because I'm the furthest thing from equestrian sports and martial arts. And I'm like, why am I having these guests on and talking with them? But I'm having the most heart to heart conversations with these people. And it's making so much sense. And I'm just like, I'm
Because
just going
there's
to
an
go with it.
underlying structure of truth that everybody's
E-
seeing, like shining out
Exactly.
into
And
these
I'm,
different
and
things.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's like, yeah, I don't have any correlation to this at all. But the thing is, I'm like, I'm pulling wisdom from all of this. And
Hmm.
funny thing is that you talked about like figuring out a skill and stuff like that. I'm actually pretty big into playing the guitar. So I played the guitar back in high school. I started I think my freshman or sophomore year, and I played for a few years in high school learning. I didn't learn proper theory or standard notation. I learned tabs and just like playing songs note for note.
Hmm.
And then when I got in college, I put it aside, and then I didn't pick it back up until I want to say last year or a year and a half ago. And I kind of fell back in that same routine. And I was like, why can't I get faster? Or like, why can't I come up with anything on my own or improvise? I haven't been doing any tablature or anything like that. I haven't done any proper music theory or anything like that. But now I'm at the point where I can do chord structures and actually play stuff. I'm gonna try to do more where I'm gonna like I want to eventually go to jam sessions with people, go to guitar music stores and stuff like that and learn that way. And now that I'm putting more constraints on that side of things, because that's very, I think I'm more attracted to like rock, heavy metal stuff, but I'm actually forcing myself to play more jazz, more
Hmm.
classical, more blues. And I actually love that style more than what I was originally playing. And I'm actually more rhythmic, more feel,
Hmm.
more, and actually playing faster and coming up with my own ideas. Actually, funny thing is, for 2 weeks now, I threw I have my guitar downstairs now, and my wife got a new job, and she's in the office upstairs, and that's where I had it before. I've been playing without a pick for the last 2.5 weeks, and I'm actually coming up with a lot more different things. And I thought I would never be able to play fingerstyle classical stuff, but now I can.
Hmm.
Like
Isn't that
in
so
2 weeks,
interesting?
I know it's natural. It's like me forcing myself with those constraints
Hmm.
and intentions, and it's just like being and taking from Bruce Lee, like embracing what is.
Hmm.
Like I'm just like that's fascinating, and I'm playing and I don't play it like all the time. I try to play as much as I can whenever it affords me, or
Hmm.
like when I want to pick it up. In a year and a half, I've been able to rewrite everything that I learned and be able to still play the stuff that I used to play.
Hmm.
It's fascinating.
It's interesting because like I don't know about soccer or CLA within, but you hear like, oh, do this drill and then it'll convert to your skills in the game or whatever, and it doesn't, right? Because the players don't care, their bodies don't care, right? And so
Uh-huh.
somebody like say I wanted to learn guitar and they said, oh, go try jazz, go try blues, go try this. If I don't want to, it's I'm not going to get the same benefit from you organically seeking this stuff out.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like following your
Yep.
fascination, your brain, I mean, that 95% that we don't see probably lights up in ways that are so different than when you're told to do something. And I'm really
Yes.
interested in that from an exercise point of view because I quit exercising when I realized I'm just violating my body constantly. Like, I'm just telling it to do things because I said so. My body does not
Yeah.
understand why I'm lifting these heavy weights or running these miles. Like it was so torturous toward the end.
Uh-huh.
I'll never, you know what? I never get to talk to anybody about this story, so I'll tell you this story if you don't mind.
Go
I
right
would
ahead.
run. I found this app called Gipis, Gipis. It was a Russian app. It was the best running app I've ever used in my life. I wish I've scoured the internet for it. I can't find it. Anyway, but every Friday would be a very intense interval run. And I would tell people for a long time, I'd be like, oh, running helps with my anxiety. I'm so much less anxious after I run. And what I realized is that that hardest running on Friday afternoons, my body was giving these somatic signals all day of dreading how hard this run was going to be because it was hard. And once I realized, oh my gosh, my body's telling, like, imagine you knew you were going to be tortured at 4 p.m. Your body would be giving you all of these signals constantly, like, no, it's happening, it's happening. They're going to drill a hole in your tooth or whatever. You'd be on edge all day. I felt like that all day. And then I'd run and it'd be over. And I always said, oh, the running reduces my anxiety. But when I realized the running created my anxiety, I quit running and I haven't run like that since. Like I can go out and jog 3 miles. Like to me, it's very mental. I know some people hate running and I'm like, whatever, I can go. But I will never forget that, and it's a very Centaur thing. Like, oh my gosh, let me listen to my somatic localized intelligence of my body, what it's telling me, which is actually what I think a lot of modern anxiety is. Like, there is a situation coming up that your body does not want to go through. And so instead of it's almost like an autoimmune thing, like we attack ourselves, like something's wrong with me, I'm anxious. No, there's a wisdom to that emotion and that body sensation that you just haven't cognitively figured the answer out to.
Uh-huh.
So instead of like, it sounds disparaging, but instead of medicating it or saying that you have anxiety, like if we as a centaur just peek and say, what is this trying to tell us? Like, do you absolutely loathe your job? Are you in a relationship, a friendship, or whatever with somebody who doesn't respect you? And I mean, that psychological torture. Anyway, that's a big rabbit hole, but I am interested someday because I didn't exercise for a long time because I was like I have no autonomy in this. I'm just doing this for a metric or a scale or a body like a clothing size. It wasn't a side effect. Like I wasn't healthy.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I'm very interested in how do we make movement organic and meaningful. Parkour looks interesting, but I haven't. That's what I mainly do is horse riding, and I have to take care of my horses, so I have to lug manure and hay bales. So I get a lot of exercise, but I'm very personally interested in this modern problem of we do not have to move in order to get food and water and shelter, right? We can have desk jobs, but yet we have the most amazing bodies at our disposal that can do the most incredible things. Like, how do we get more people moving like that? How do I get myself moving and doing parkour? So
Uh-huh.
that's a whole nother story, but the playfulness is what I think we all need to figure out in the games
Yeah,
and the sports and things like that.
absolutely, absolutely. Especially you touched on where things are like having to be so structured and not having that autonomy within like, fitness and strength,
Hmm.
and like coming from my background as a strength coach, like I was taught you have to have this linear periodization, block
Right,
periodization,
right.
this linear phasic step-by-step approach to development for peak performance
Hmm.
and all of that. And when learning all of these theories and this mindset, because it is a mindset, it's not just like piecing these theories together and be like, oh, here's this puzzle. No, it's a mindset. It's
Yeah.
being uncomfortable with, it's cliche, being comfortable with the uncomfortable
Hmm.
and all that. But when I was learning this back in 2020 with my mentor at the time, he brought it up to me. And I was like, whoa, this is like unstructured. This is like all that, where he's applying different, giving the athletes autonomy within a workout session, where it's like, okay, we're gonna do a squatting movement. Whether you want to do back squat, front squat, trap bar deadlift, goblet squat, whatever, you can do that, but make it heavy. And I was like, whoa, hold up, hold up, hold up. You're not having every one of them do the same exact movement that you are telling them to do. No, you're giving them a choice, giving them autonomy. And that's where I was like, how do I do this? Then I went to the collegiate realm for a time, and I did that with my volleyball team. And I was like, okay, we have my plan for the program, but I'm going to give you bits and pieces of choice and autonomy. What resulted was they made it to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 5 or 6 years. They got knocked out right away at the Division 3 level, but the rapport that they got, they actually enjoyed going into the weight room and being there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and
Yeah.
all these other metrics that we don't think are important but are important because they enjoyed it. And before, when I got there, the strength coach at the time, he just did copy and paste. Everyone's doing the same exact workout for all 26 teams.
Hmm.
And I was like, they hated coming in. They didn't want to do it. And then after one semester, they're like, we love it. We don't want to
Yeah,
stop
it's
going.
well,
Like,
and that's my
yeah,
Centaur model. If you practice on nothing else with another person but attuning to them, making them feel safe, seen, soothed, which soothed has a lot of connotations here. I do not mean coddling. I mean
yes,
helping them either by adjusting the environment a little or by helping them see that their challenge, they can match that with their skill. That is soothing. That is what parents do with children all the time to help you realize that you are superior to the challenge of life. So people hear soothed and they think it's ooey gooey. No, no, no. Safe, seen, soothed. When people are safe, seen, soothed, they feel attached, and then you have this almost exponential growth that they can do more with their body and their mind, and they want to. And I see this when I give riding lessons over and over and over, where, and this just happened yesterday, where I had a new student and I gave them an exercise to do in the horse. And they said, oh, no, no, I'm too scared to do that. I was like, okay, fine. So we'll do something else. They came back the next time and they suggested that harder exercise. And their body was shaking. They were clearly scared, but as creature, like we as humans, we want to solve puzzles. We want to get better. But that social environment where I said, oh, yeah, whatever you want to do, we'll just do something that's more to this level. Here are other options, just like your coach in the weight room. Here are options. This is the goal. You choose one. People will often choose the harder thing when they're safe. But if you force them and like put a proverbial gun to their head, they're not going to want to do it. They don't trust you either. So a lot of my book is about that co-regulation between the mentor and the student, and how if you are teaching someone, you want that to be psychologically safe. Again, it's not codependent. It's not, you don't have to be their therapist. It's not ooey gooey. You can do this with horses. Some of the rougher cowboy types, when they reward the smallest try on a horse, they don't care about the horse's feelings. They're not trying to be empathetic. But when they're asking, like, for example, I don't know, a horse to use its right leg in a certain moment and the horse does it, and they reward them by a release of pressure, that horse feels seen. And that taps into that mammalian architecture, and the horse will give more. They'll put more
Uh-huh.
effort in because they feel seen. So the whole Centaur about if you do nothing else as a parent or a coach, but just concentrate on that heart, that bond, it will light up pieces of cognition in the body in ways that other things can't, and create cooperation and synergy that anyway, that's why I write a book about it because I love it so much. And I think that more people can get benefits from doing that, like your coach did and how you are doing that with your volleyball team.
Hmm. I
You're
love
doing
that.
it because we all know how to do it. We're all mammals. We
Yeah,
know it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. One first, I gotta get your book. I gotta read that for sure, and just not rip it apart, but really dive into it
Well, to give you
head
some
first and
different
all that
dots.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that, and for sure. And I'm not a big reader in the first place, but there's leaning into that curiosity in the moment. It's like I'm gonna for sure read this when you first brought up, or like when you first contacted me. It's like, oh, this is interesting, I want to
Yeah. It's
dive into
different.
this.
Yeah.
But when you talked about how you were just saying how, like, when you reward something with a horse, if they move their right leg a certain way and then they want to do more and be more
They feel
expression,
seen. Yeah.
like they feel seen. that's that really solidified this dot that Kathy talked about with her horse Dromir. I probably just butchered
I know who
that,
you're
which is
talking
fine.
about. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Where, like, just whipping to annoy the crap out of him, and like reward for just being like expressing himself and
Yeah.
being more of a horse and actually trotting and like fluffing up. I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a powerful story. It's actually, I draw on that story so much in
It
my
is a
book
powerful
because
story. Yeah.
it is a powerful story, and it's not human to human. It's a human to horse relationship. And it's funny now that we're talking about centaurs, I'm kind of referring to that
Yeah. Of
centaur.
course, your brain's making that connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's making that connection now with the dots. But like, that just was like, oh my gosh, if you do that with, like what you said, safe, seen, soothed, that my light bulb is just going off. Like, there's a reason why things
There's a reason
change
why.
when there's a reason why some people liked working with me versus the other person, or why I got
Yeah.
fired and some people stayed, or like I'm getting rejected. And it's just like, it's and it explains a lot. And that I think a lot of people need to hear that. And I think it's going to help. One, I think if people think of it in that way of safe, seen, soothed, and apply that to coaching and learning,
Yes. Yeah. That's what the whole
and
book's about. Yeah.
allow autonomy and co-design and this cohesion, it takes people on a path that they can't turn back on.
No.
And it's crazy that, and that's why I love having these conversations with people. And this is what this is all about, honestly. Is just, this is co-designed, this between
Yes.
you and I, like, because I have no structure like on coming with this. This is literally our first in-person
Yeah.
connection,
Yeah.
and
Connection. Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's awesome. Well, are there any other tangents or rabbit holes that you want to go down?
Oh, there's always some. I do want to say that as an example of scene. So if you imagine you and your daughter are about to cross a busy street and there's cars flying around, right? When a
Mm-hmm.
car hesitates, you feel seen, right?
Yep.
They see you, and then you go into the traffic because you know they're going to slow down. So when I say seen, it does not mean like a spotlight. It doesn't mean you have to be like, "Oh, yes, my wonderful wrestling student. Oh, you're so That's not what seen is. It's so subtle and it's so powerful. But we do it all the time. Now, if there was all these cars barreling down and you tried to step in to say, "Hey, I need to pass," and they stopped and you started to walk and then they went forward, you would feel so betrayed and terrified, right? And then you'd worry about the next car that did that. So for horses, they feel like that all the time. They're constantly giving us signals. They have an enormous set of facial expressions that they're communicating to us all the time. But humans are like that too. We just often blow through all of these little things where all you have to do is pause and let somebody go and feel safe and seen, and then they will trust you in a way that they wouldn't have before. So it's milliseconds. Like you know this from playing music, right? We know this from any kind of sport. It'd be I use this all the time. Like if I threw you a ball and I said catch the ball, I would never tell you twist your wrist 15 degrees, close your fingers. That's insane,
It's just,
right? There's the same mammalian intelligence in the limbic system that we just need to tap into a little bit and allow. And that's living as a centaur, and that is
mhm.
what I want to model. And I hope, because cognitively I can tell you these things and it's probably not going to change anybody's behavior, but if I can get people reading the book and on the newsletter, and if I can get people getting, I don't even, I'm not sure how it's going to look yet, but I want to this to ripple out more and more because it is that powerful. And then once you're practiced at it, you don't even think about. I don't even think about it when I redirect people in mistaken goals or parent or anything like that. I'm not an expert. I don't do it 100% of the time. The thing about becoming a secure attachment that's incredibly encouraging, the safe, seen, soothed, with an infant or with a child or with a you only have to show up 30% of the time. 20 or
Mhm.
30% of the time, and you will create an attachment. So it's okay to be imperfect. We just gotta, when somebody gives us a little bit of a red light that they're concerned, if we stop, that doesn't mean that we're going to say, "Oh, you don't have to go into traffic; it's too scary." But if we can give them that clear that path for them, their body is going to come up with a better, or even their mind or their heart, any part of them as a centaur, is going to come up with a co-design that wouldn't have happened if they didn't feel seen. So
Mhm.
I think that is a good wrap up and a good tangent for what we were talking
Yeah,
about.
I love that, and making a connection there. Like I worked with a lot of like youth athletes too, and obviously with being a youth, just being 13 years old or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like skittish. But I've come across a few individuals who are just like don't want to be near a weight room or anything like that, or just want to not make a mistake. But like just as simple as a high five or like, hey, good job.
Exactly,
It's giving
exactly.
that it's like giving them that attention. And I actually taught on my last podcast with Alex and Laureen Zarhake, who are trauma informed coaches,
Yeah, yeah, they were great.
utilizing
Yeah, yeah.
that. Yeah, which they're amazing people. Where it's just simple as they might that might be the only time that they're getting that attention or being seen.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I'm getting a spotlight shine on me now from nature. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing my shadows.
Oh,
But yeah, I know, right? But like that might be the only time that they are getting seen. And it
it's
could be just
powerful.
so minimal, and that's powerful. And yeah, that I think that is a beautiful way to wrap this up. So uh where can people find you, and what is on the horizon for you?
They can find me at my website, KristenSchweizer.com. I got married. I have to spell out both my names now. KristenSchweizer.com. So you can get my book. You can sign up for my newsletter. What I'm working on is a course to try to teach all of this information, knowing that cognitively it's probably not going to reach people's bodies. Like, how many courses have I bought? How many books have I read? I need people to model it. And so, a lot of the course is as much as possible, I want to give visual and emotional storytelling and examples of these Mario Kart, Mario Bros, Super Mario, like this level where people get stuck and how you get over that, and then offering one-on-one coaching because I think mentorship is so huge for this. And you can be the same person if you're a centaur, and we all are, to be aligned rider, heart, and horse, mind, limbic system, and body, and you can make dreams come true within yourself, with others, and with non humans in a way that is not possible if we don't harness all of this.
That's beautiful. It's a great way to end things. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, for sure. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down, chat with someone, and just go down a few rabbit holes.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you very much, Sam.
Yeah, of course. All right, let me stop this really quick.